It has been a stressful last few days. And I generally don't get stressed, but trying to make things happen has been tough. I'm going to talk about that just for a minute, explain why it's been stressful and why we're over it. And I'm going to tell a fishing story or something. or something. I'm Dale Verts, old school all the way. Can't beat traditional bass fishing, y'all. Is that too bright? Is the light too bright? I don't care because it's 40 degrees in central Missouri. The snow's melting. And that brings me back to the problem why I'm stressed. I'm over it, I think. We did not open my restaurant Thursday night because the high that day was 11 degrees. Y'all, we're out here in the middle of the woods. We're a long ways from anywhere important, I guess. And people just ain't going to drive out when it's that cold. We had a few, but it wouldn't have been worth it. We've learned that in almost 10 years in this business. Being in the middle of the woods ain't good sometimes. We've had such a horrendous run of weather, and I know the whole country has. Not just me, not just us. So yesterday morning, Friday morning, I came in 9:30, fire everything up because I'd shut the water down, killed my well, figuring I did everything right, and I didn't. I came to a frozen mess. Broken water lines, broken PVC pipe, blowed up copper, and yeah, we're going to redo it all in PEX someday because I'm tired of that. It's an old building is where it is, the old building. There's just too many places cold air gets into it. And I've tried to fix it, and I thought I had it fixed, but 14 degrees below zero, man, we just ain't made for that. It's just horrible. So we worked until 4:15 last night before we had another one blow up. We had water lines break that haven't had water in them as far as being charged lines in 8.5 years. There was still moisture in them. It popped caps off. Compression fitting valves popped off. Anyway, so right now we're charged. It's working. Been that way for several hours. I've announced we're going to be open tonight. And that's my stress story. Let's talk some fishing. Folks dig fishing stories, and I dig them because they're my stories. They ain't nobody else's. I ain't copying off anybody. No plagiarism. It's my stuff. And if it's not interesting, I'm sorry. And some folks ain't going to watch this anyway because I'm not complaining about forward-facing sonar. Trad bass fishing rules, though, y'all. This is traditional as it gets. When I was 12 years old, we moved to the country, which I was trapping rabbits in town. I couldn't wait to go fishing, and I cried. When I was a little kid, I'd cry when it was time to go home from fishing. I cried. And I remember some of that, throwing fits. I wasn't ready to quit. Be out there all day, sunburnt, all night, beat up. But my dad was a cat fisherman, whatever, so bass fishing was not part of it. We moved to the country, the creek. You see the creek from my house, about a half mile down the road. Big creek, biggest creek around here. I still live close to it this way. And that summer, we moved 4th of July weekend. I spent a lot of days at that creek. My mom was scared to death and go down and get drowned by a big old snapping turtle or something. My 13th summer, though, is when I discovered bass. I've talked about this before, and actually I did a video a week or two ago on my second bass fishing trip. I'm out of order here, but that's okay. So I discovered it was bass. I caught one and didn't know what it was. I'd only caught one in my life. I caught a little baby bass sunfishing when I was about 10 years old. And I didn't know what, just a little bitty thing that big. So I caught one on a MEP spinner. And I thought, somebody said it was a white bass. I didn't know. I figured out pretty quick that it was a largemouth bass. So that summer we were going to have a day at our the lake by where our church was. And I don't remember what was going on, but me and a kid, and a friend of mine, neighbor, decided we was going to go fishing. And I was going to go bass fishing. I've been catching a few little bass in the creek, but I'd never been bass fishing, for real, with my solid glass rod, my 202 Zebco, with kinky 10-pound line. Oh, man. How we ever caught bass. The night before, I was on the phone with Ted. I said, Ted, they were going to town. And going to town was a thing. back in those days, going to town, you had to have a reason to go town. Couldn't afford to go town just because we wanted to go. And I said, Ted, would you pick me up a plug? He's going to go to, I don't know, a Kmart or something. I said, just get me some, what kind of plug? I said, just get me a bass plug. And I was thinking crankbait. I was thinking Big O. That's what I had in my mind, was a square bill crankbait. So next morning we meet to go out to the lake, and he hands me this box with this big old, to me, big old 3-inch long plug with spinners on both ends. Wasn't what I wanted. Wasn't what I was expecting. It was a Nip-a-Ditty by South Bend. Prop bait. Wooden prop bait. White with a red head. How much better does it get than that? Well, I, of course, didn't say nothing. Beggars can't be choosers. I paid him the $3.50 or whatever it was, and got to the lake and tied it on. And that was the end for old fat boy. I fell in love. I didn't know nothing about fishing or top. I didn't know nothing about bass fishing, period, but throwing a topwater plug, had no knowledge. I know I put on a snap swivel. I think I learned the clinch knot. And I used snaps that first year or so until I started using Texas rig worms where a snap didn't work. I learned better, but so I tied this thing on. Now, this is not no knowledge of the bait, no knowledge of fish, no knowledge of anything. And probably the hook's dull, because so many hooks are dull. But it didn't take me very many casts for a fish bit it. And I'm hooked. It wasn't a big bass. I didn't catch any big bass that day, 12, 13 inches, but I caught several. I missed a bunch more and I lost some because I didn't know nothing about it. That wimpy little 5-foot solid glass rod. Luckily, there was a few bass just wanted to commit hara-kiri on me that day. But I was entranced with that topwater plug. It's funny, though. I learned something else about fishing. They bit good that day. Went back the next day again. They were doing stuff at the church and doing stuff at the house the church owned there, where the preacher lived. I think it was getting ready for a new preacher is what it was. Had a new preacher coming in. So the parsonage, getting all that stuff done. Anyway, next day I caught one bass, had one more bite. I learned a lot about fishing that couple of days. I could not wait to take that topwater bait to the creek. And I did. And they liked it at the creek even more than they did in that lake. I threw that bait. I threw the paint off of that bait that summer. And that fall at that creek, I was throwing around some grass. Water temperature probably in the 50s, probably too cold to throw it. I didn't catch anything that day. And I got hung up in the grass, about 3 foot of water, and I couldn't get to it. I didn't try to get to it. I broke it off. I can't believe I didn't wade in there after it. Man, that was just so much fun that summer. And learning, but still the most fun way to catch bass for me is a topwater. Always, I mean, I love flipping a jig. But when it comes just catching fish for fun, a topwater bait is the only way to go. And the thrill of it. And, oh man, the missed bites. Some of them fish were really big. Well, maybe they weren't big. To this day, a fish bowls on topwater bait, and it looks like a hog jaw, and it may not have been. Just wonderful. Topwater fishing. Another thing about later on, I talked about a while back, that lake, is I got hooked on topwaters. I bought my first lunker lure that year, maybe, probably next year, when I was 14, so I really got serious. So I decided I wanted to be a professional bass fisherman. How's that for a winning thing? I bought that lunker lure. The thing was huge, half-ounce lunker lure. I couldn't believe how big that fish was. Big that bait was. Caught fish on it. But I was in that same lake that next spring, and I bought a snag-proof hollow-bodied frog. Now, it wasn't my first frog. That's another story from that same year. And a couple fish had hit that thing. No tackle, and I mean, wimpy rod and all that. Oh my gosh, I'm just so stoked on topwater fishing. And over the years, I wasted a lot of time throwing topwater bait. If I took it for what it was worth as a search bait instead of a catch bait, I've had some heartbreaking tournaments. I've had some wonderful tournaments and wonderful trips fishing, but so many days it just didn't quite work. And some of the bass, I've had some big bass blow up on it. I swear to gosh, I had 4 bass over 6 pounds one day. We saw the fish on Lake Ozarks in a tournament. I never caught a keeper that day, but had 4 over 6 pounds blow up on that bait. Numerous 2s, 3s, and 4s on a spook. And didn't know how to follow up, didn't know how to catch them. Sometimes I still don't. That's all there is, y'all. It's kind of simple, but I just out here in the sun, Got a fire going. It's still 40 degrees, 41 degrees. Woo. Gonna get better. Hopefully we can get going here and make a living again, because it's hard to make a living when you're not open. And all I did spend money the last 2 days on parts and pieces, and $30 for a roll of solder. I did not buy that roll of solder. I found some at the house. $30 for a roll of solder. What is this world coming down to? Topwater baits and bass fish. You don't get much better than that. Hey, y'all, solar bat link in the description. And maybe it'll be a link that works. I don't know how long I've been putting a link in the description. It didn't work. I don't know what happened there. Whatever. But I put a link in. It does work. It's 25% off sale. Some other things involved. If you use my promo code, you get free shipping. And the next video will have something more about solar bat glasses that probably nobody will watch, and they'll miss out. God bless you guys. I hope it's getting warmer y'all are at too. We're getting closer. We'll talk at you later.